Hey guys, welcome back to the fifth episode of Airport Search tutorial using RxSwift and MVVM in iOS Swift. So in this episode, we are going to see how to data bind or list out the cities in a table view, because we already have this fetching of the cities in place, fetching of the airports actually in place, and then we also had something implemented where we can search on cities and it starts listing out based on whatever you are actually making input here. So with that, right now we can actually start listing out that table view using the filtered items. So let's get started with that. So whatever we right now have is an observable created where we are combining the search text as well as all the airports observables, which we are actually fetching using the process whenever we are running this initial init state of this. We are fetching all the airports here, and then we are converting it into a set, which is then stored in a state object which you are maintaining in the view model called a state, where you have all the airports be set in a behavior relay. So we are going to use this. We're already using this to make a request, and this is actually what is getting printed right now. So whenever you're typing something, it filters out and then lists out all the airports, actually all the airports coming in different cities based on the search result. So if I want to, let's say, only list out the cities here, then I might have to filter out or maybe take the distinct element out of, let's say, if I have 5 airports within the same city, I'm just going to do a filter and then get that distinct element, maybe the first one out of the whole, maybe the 5 airports which I'm trying to fetch here. I'm doing this because what the response type, whatever I am getting from the API which I'm using, is a list of airports. It's not like a list of cities. So that's the reason you might just get 5 airports which belong to the same city. So whatever I'm going to do is pick that one city out of that 5 airports. So that's what we will do here, and then translate that into a view model, which again can be bound with your table view cell. So let's do that now. So first thing first, let's translate this response to a view model. So for that, I'm going to create something called as a city view model. Create a new file. City view model. And whatever I'm going to have inside the city model is first thing, let me just create it as a struct city view model, and it is also going to implement a protocol which is more like the definition of whatever I'll be exposing to the view side. So what if I'm binding my table view cell, it is going to bind using this protocol instead of the actual view model. So that's the reason I'm keeping a view model presentable side as well as a protocol. So I'm going to have a city, which is more like the text of whatever the city title it's going to be. Also, I'm going to give a location of that city. This can be like a combination of city, state, and the country part. Maybe the state and the country, because city we are already displaying using this. So the location can be the state and the country, both of these things together combined. That's my location. So this can now be implemented in my city view model. So this will ask you to implement those 2 fields, which we can readily do, those 2. And let's now, so this, if you don't have an init, it's going to use the city and location as the inits. So let's create an extension, because this view model is going to be instantiated using the model. We already have a city model created or airport model created. So we use that airport model we don't have a city model because whatever response that we are getting is actually an array of airport model. So whatever we are going to do is use one of the airport model and then translate that into a city view model. So that's what we will do here. So let's do that. City view model extension is going to have an init, and we'll pass the model, which will be the airport model, which you already have. And then we can initialize this view model using this airport model. Already have the city, and I'm gonna use a location as a concatenation of both the strings, which is, let's say it's already having the state is one of the parameters, and also with a comma the country where the city is belonging to. Country, these are two parameters coming from the API response. So I'm just using that to instantiate the city view model. So country anyway is gonna, I think it's gonna be not a nullable type, so I can just directly say model.city country. So this is my init for accepting that. So once that is done, so let's go back and see what do you have here. It's print whatever we are fetching here. Let's say if you do a map, you can see that it is a set of airport model. So we can use this to actually create that view model. So I can just say maybe use that as $0 itself because it's an array. You can map it and then translate that into a view model. So before doing that, I don't need each and everything that is coming back here, like the airports. Whatever filter we are applying is actually return me an array of airports. So it will be coming back with the same city, multiple airports within that same city. Whatever I can do here is I can filter this, I can receive this array and then maybe convert it into a unique array where only one airport per city is being sent across through this map. So for that I can do something right away. I can let me just create an extension here which is actually going to convert this array to a distinct array where only one airport with one city is going to be coming back. So for that, create an extension, let that be a private one, and search city view model. So I'm going to grab something right away from the internet, which I'm not going to actually spend time on doing this array, distinct array, unique elements from an array thing working. So I'm going to use something here. So this is actually nothing but if I pass an array to this function, this is going to return me something where it is going to only send a distinct element of an array which will contain only one city for that airport for a single. I mean, it's more like if you got it, like if you have 5 airports and then which is actually belonging to the same city, this unique elements from is only going to return the first value of that airport, not the whole 5, just the first value, so that I can just get that one city and then use that. So that's only intention here. So here we need to do something more because this set, we are actually using a set here where city view model need to conform to Hashable. So for this Hashable to work, we need to make it conform to that city. So that's what we'll do right now. Let's go to our city view model, which we just created now. Let's go there, city view model, and then implement Hashable here. Extension city view model. Let that implement equatable as well as Hashable. Both things are required. hashable, both of these things, and we need to have function for that hashable to work. Static function where LHS city view model and pass the RHS left and the right hand side for comparison, and then this should return boolean. And we just need to say if LHS.city equals RHS of .city. So this is a comparison for equatable side, and let's do the hashable side as well, where we define a function called hash into hasher. So this is something which is the implementation for a hashable. So if you go to the documentation of hashable, this is how it is being done. Hasher.combine will pass what needs to be the hash value to be on. So it is on the city. So that's done. Now you should not get an error on the other side where it was asking for it to conform to hashable over here. So city view model is now conforming to hashable. So this is just an implementation to get the unique elements from I just picked it from the internet. So you just are passing the array, apply on a filter on it, and it's just checking on a set we are maintaining whether if that value is there or not, whether the city view model is already existing or not. So it just applies and filter. It's already there. It's only going to return a unique elements from the array. So it's going to filter out and give you, if you have 5 airports from one city, and then 4 from another city, this is going to give you finally 2 arrays, 2 values in that array, which will have 1 airport from each city. So that's how it's going to work. So we're going to use this here. So in this map, I'm just going to say $0.unique. What did we? Unique elements from. Let's see that ones. So unique. Okay, it's going to be a private thing. So I just need to use this function .unique elements from the array. So our array is $0, whatever we are passing from these airports. So that's actually this $0 is actually the airport model. So we need to translate this into view models. So let's do that. Compact map. So okay, let me just explain it pretty in a way which can be understood. So we already have defined a model. We already have defined an init where city view model can be created using the model, the airport model. So that's what we are going to do here. This $0 is actually an array of airport models. So this is the map. You do the map, you get an array of airport model. So we have to convert that array into an array of airport view model, city view model. So for that, we are transforming that using compact map into airport, city view model. And it is accepting an airport model there. So you can just pass $0 because the compact maps $0 has no member compact map. Okay, it should be smaller case. Compact map is accepting again a model. So $0 here, which is actually the map value from here, and you're using this static function to uniquely get whatever array of view model which is created by this one. This $0 is nothing but the array of airport models coming here, and then you're transforming that array into each element we are passing of this array to as airport model to the city view model creation. So this finally gives you, this part gives you an array of city view model, and then you are just getting the unique elements from this whatever you're getting by passing this array. By if you pass this to this function, it's going to return you unique airports for each city. It's more like only one airport is returned for one city. So you can use this to actually create your cells, because you already have the city information in this, because you created this city view model. So that's what we are going to do here. This is converted now to the view model. Now if you want to convert this into this is your, now this is becoming the data source for your table view, because as soon as you start filtering, you're filtering on the airports model, which in turn gets transformed into the city view model, and then you're picking up the unique elements from this array. So finally this is actually what is becoming as your data source for your table view, which is as simple as that. So what do we do now? We cannot directly bind your view model to the table view. So for that we need to use something called as the RxDatasources, which is a community library available to actually make it easier for data binding to happen to a table view in RxSwift. So that's what we'll be using right now to make the binding happen. So we have this right now. I'm gonna do some more thing. Okay, let's include the RxDatasources now, because we don't have it in the pod yet. So let's include that. Go to that folder. Let's go to the pod. Okay, we have already included it. So RxDatasources is something we needed for that. It's already included in the pod. So whatever we can do is we can directly use import RxDatasource. So we already have data sources available. So that's done. So what is going to happen is this map, which is creating this unique elements of table view, again needs to be converted to something called as something called as a section element for data sources. So for that, let's create a section type here. Like we need to create it as a type alias. Maybe let's create it right here. Maybe go to the city view model, and then let's create it somewhere at the top. I'm gonna create a type alias, call it city items section, and this is going to be, so we need to also import RxDatasources here, so that you can access that something called as a section model, which is coming with RxDatasource. So this is what will enable you to make the data binding happening. So this accepts at the default basic level, you can make it accept a integer and the view model, which will actually represent your city view presentable is what it needs. Okay. So at the basic level, it can have an int, which is actually defining your section, and the view type which is required. I mean, present a view model type which needs to be used to bind to a table view. So this can also be string. If you, let's say you want to have a header, section header, and then need to define some value to that header, so that's when you can use a string or something. But at a basic level, you can use an int, where you can define, let's say maybe as in index 0 header, you can have a value 0 1. So that's what the section model can allow you to actually have something it need not be just an int string, it can be any type, because this is actually a template or a generics type where you can pass in any type you want. Like even this can be a view model, and then you can consume that for the header something. So that's how you use it. So I'm keeping the base type here, that's int, not even the base, but I don't need any value here. I can just maybe create some indexes here for that table view cells header side. So that's what I'm doing here. City items section, I'm creating that. Now this can be used to transform your final map, whatever you have done. Again, you can do a map here, then transform your view model to a section. So it's going to happen like we need an array of sections, so we can just do something like array, and then I'll just say city section, item section, and that can accept what can it accept? The model. So it's already city item section. It's already giving me options to expected constructors, so I can do that. Okay, not this. City, it's accepting a model, int, and the array. So I can just do something like I don't need multiple headers, I just need one. So I'm just keeping this in index 0. If I had multiple, then it's not going to be 0, just 0. It needs to come from somewhere where I also need to pass on the indexes to which the headers and its array items needs to be. So that I'm right now just gonna use index 0 because I don't have multiple headers here, just one index, and every value, every items is going to go to that specific index. So I'm just saying $0 because this already is transforming and giving me a city view model array, the unique ones. I'm just passing that to this, and so this creates me an array of city item section. This is what is going to be the final data source, which is going to get bound with my table view. So one thing I'm going to do right now, because this is right now subscribed here itself, but I need to pass it to my view model. So how do I view controller? So how do I pass that? First thing first, I need to remove these two lines because I don't need the subscription happening here. Next thing I do is I convert this into a driver. If there is no value, I can just make it as empty. So if there is some error, it's going to be empty. So this I already have here. So whatever I'm going to do is I need to pass this to the view model, view controller. So I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do is, let's go to my output section, view model output. This is my output. It has nothing right now. So I'm just going to say cities, and it's going to be of type driver an array of city item section. It cannot be a single item, so I'm just keeping one more empty tuple item. So this is my output right now. So cities is what I'll need to pass here. So this is again now because I have included cities here in this output. So this is where my output is getting created. Just set here self.output is the static function output using some parameters like input, state, bag, and all. Bag we don't need anymore because we just got rid of that subscription where the bag was used. I can get rid of that. Now it's only using input and state. So I have this observable created as a driver. So now I can just say let cities is equal to this observable. I just need to pass, or maybe I just can call it as sections because those are the sections which we are going to pass. So I can just say cities is sections and one more empty because we cannot have a single value for a tuple. That's done. So my cities is bound and I'm returning now section using this same observable which I had created. So whatever happened is whenever there is a search text value is entered, it is fed to this observable combine, which also is having the airports observable, which is nothing but that initial fetch. Whatever that airports is being returned, that's converted into an observable. It's combined here and passed, and then we are using that to filter out the airports using this search key, which is this one. And the final filter gives you an array of all the results. Then you are uniquely identifying each and every airports for cities, but then you are only picking up one airport for a city. That makes it unique, and then you are mapping it and creating it as a cities item section, which is actually now becoming the data source for your table view. So that's what we did here. It's pretty simple. You have the sections and it's giving me some error. Let's look at that as well, because it is the case, because I was passing that back. So it's giving me that error. I'm getting rid of that. Now compile, everything works fine. Next step, we have the data source ready. So now we need to bind it to the table view. So let's go back to our search city view controller. It has a title and all that things, and we need to start doing the binding here. So let's first create an extension again. We call that as okay, I don't need to call it anything else because it's for search city view controller, and then let's make it private. Let's create a function called a couple of functions, maybe setup UI, and then maybe I can pass this here. Then I call the setup UI here, and then let's create one more function called setup binding. And this is where we are gonna use this view model, self.viewModel. It already has a output. Use that to get the cities. So we get the cities here, which is what is going to get converted into a data source, but not here. At least we're going to do something before that. Let this be here. Set up view model, set up the binding. Before that, we need to create a table view so that we can start binding. Not the table view cell. So let's create that one. Let's create a cell. Let's go to the view section, create a group called cell, because we might have multiple cells created, and then I'm gonna call it as new file. Go here, UITableView cell, gonna call it as city cell, table view cell. Also create the XIB. Created. I don't need all this. That's done. So city cell, let's add the fields required. It's loading. Is it okay? Loaded finally. So first thing first, let me just reference whatever I have already done, like whatever height I have set. Its row height is 100. That's what I have set. Let's go there. Okay, it's automatic. I'm gonna make it as 100. Okay, that's the row height. I'm gonna add two labels. Do I need some view? Okay, I have a view on top. Maybe I'll just add it finally. Let me add those cell labels first. Label. Machine is really slow. Okay, so cell city. That's going to be what's the 20. So I'm gonna use the same things, so it should, so that I'm just showing the same consistent things. Custom, I'm gonna change this to Avenir medium of size 20. That's the size I have given. And let's add one more, just copying one more, and then keep that for state and country, but I'm gonna make it a little smaller, 14 maybe, and keep it as light itself, Avenir light 14, and color maybe not so prominent, it can be a lighter color. I don't know what color I used, maybe I'll just pick that same. View flip side back, let me check. View flip side background color, okay, that's the color I used. Let me add it in stack view. So I keep getting many interesting comments about how to set these constraints in different ways. Maybe those are very interesting. I would also like to try all that. I'm just keeping the same things. Like somebody suggested that if I do this holding like a shift key, or I don't remember, like options key, I guess. Okay, I don't remember at all which one was that. I hope it was shift or something. I guess, I don't know, maybe. Whoa, some effect. So you get to choose multiple views at the same time to set the constraint. So those things maybe I'll try out once we are pretty good with this. 20, what just happened? Maybe I don't need this constraint. Maybe I can set it as center or something. Center to this view, center vertically, yeah. That's pretty much what I wanted to do there. And if there is a spacing between these, let's keep it as 10 or something. Yeah, so this is my cell city. I'm gonna add those. Okay, it's totally new assistant. So used to Xcode 10.1. Now it's 11. Still a little learning curve there. City label, connect, then state country label. I just keep it as location itself because that's what I had. Location label, that's also done. So let's go back, close this city cell. Maybe I'll have a function called same name I always use, called configure, and then I use using ViewModel, which is actually city view presentable. So like I said, I'll be using the presentable, which is actually the protocol to a view model to configure this. That's what I did here. So I can use that to configure this cell. Self.city label.text is equal to ViewModel.city, and the location label dot text is ViewModel.location. So that's done. My configure function is ready. So we are set with the table view cell right now. You'll use that to bind to the table view. Go back and then let's see. First thing, let's create a let's register these cells. So let's go back, set up table view. I have the table view set up. UI table view is already there. I'm gonna register this nib with the reusable identifier. So this is what I'm going to use. My nib name is going to be UI nib, named nib name is city cell bundle nil, maybe, because I don't have any frameworks yet, so I can directly say nil. If I keep it in different frameworks, then this whole thing goes for a difference. So that maybe, if you're really interested, I think you already asked me for that framework thing. Let's work on this once we have completely done with this. Create frameworks at that point. And I'm going to create a cell. I'm going to grab something which I already have. I don't want to sit on creating that. So I already have the cell identifier, cell ID called city cell ID. I'm going to use that. So identifier is going to be this search city ViewController cell ID. So my cell is registered now. So next step is creation of the data source. So we are going to create it as a variable here. So lazy variable, private, not a lazy variable. Yeah, it is a lazy variable. Sorry, private lazy var data source. So we are going to use let me show you how this data source is going to work. Something, if you already seen my earlier tutorials, you will know how it works. So RxDatasources, it's going to use something called as RxTableView sections reload data source. There are two kinds, an animated and section. If you want some kind of an animation, you can use the animated data source. If you don't, if you just want to make it work a regular reload data source, then you can use. I'm going to use the reload one. I don't need all this fancy animation yet. So it's going to accept a type of the section which we defined, which is the city items section. And that's it. You can use this as a function to configure. So it will give you, if you just say this, it will accept configure cell. So we need to pass that. So it is accepting lots of things. Okay, it is accepting the section, table view, index path, and the item, which is the view model. So we don't need the section, and it is going to return a cell, table view cell. That's how it is going to work. Let's get off that. Let's get rid of things which we don't need. I'm just gonna include all those fields right here. So this is more like a closure where I can pass section. We don't need. We need the table view. Then it asks for the index path, and finally the data source. I mean the item. Each item of the data source, which is nothing but the view model. In this case, it is table view cell. It is the city view presentable. That's what we had defined. City view presentable. So now it's going to give me error. Say configure cell. I think this is pretty okay. It's going to just ask me to return. Otherwise, this is okay. RxTableView data source having configure cell as a function where we pass these values 2, 3 item in. I guess this is okay. Let's see. So let's create that. Let's dequeue that cell first, which is city cell equals TableView dot DQ, there is some problem. Let's see, is the return UITableView cell, is there a problem? It's not a problem, so there is no problem. So all that we need is let city cell equals TableView dot DQ reusable cell using identifier and index path. For index path, use that with identifier. We know the identifier, which is search city view controller dot city ID, and the index path. We already have the index path. That's it. And let's make it as city cell, and then that's what we are going to return, not this. So that's it. So your cell is ready, and we also need to configure that function we have defined to configure this. Dot configure using the view model. So you know this item is our view model. You just pass that to configure this cell. So it's similar to the same data source TableView delegate and TableView data source implementation which you do, where you can configure the cell in the same way. So this is just the Rx version of it. So we are done with this, but that's not the end. Like, we have only defined a lazy variable here, but we have not used it. So where do we use it? Let's go to the binding part where we will actually configure it. So TableView. So we already have the view model dot output dot cities. Now we can drive it. Use that to drive our TableView Rx data source. So that's very simple. City, gonna just say drive, and I'm gonna pass TableView dot Rx dot items. Items ask for a source, which is our observable type. This is where we will pass the data source which we created right now. So items, there are two. I think this is the data source, not this one. RxTableView data source and UITableView data source. Items, data source, pass that same self.data source. So that's the binding part. And then you need to call all that same things like dot drive. If it is a driver, you need to call drive. It's already drive, so you can just call the dispose by. You already have defined a bag. No, so let's create a dispose bag. Private let bag is equal to dispose bag. I think this pattern has gone for a change right now, where you don't need to actually do this at every place. I guess I'll come to that in the next episode, where you just need to maybe do this at one point where bag can be used. Insert, I don't know whether it is called insert or something, where you can pass all the disposable like this, so that it comes under one block, like something like dispose, maybe disposables. All the disposables will come under this then. So you just need to then just say this. You don't need to call this dispose bag every time. I'm not pretty sure how it's going to work, how it's working, but I'll come back in the next episode and show you how you can get rid of this multiple, every time calling this dispose everywhere. It's actually just adding just disposable elements to this bag, so that it gets recycled after this gets deinitialized something. So we'll come to that later. I'm going to call this set of bindings here. That's done. So TableView binding is over. Do we need anything more? I think we can run and see whether the table views getting populated. So I think we are all pretty good. We registered the cell, we bound the table view, created a table view things. Let's now run and see. running. Coordinator starts. Okay, now once you start typing, okay, it's working, but it's messed up because we need to fix our table view. So it's working. Go back to main and then go to the table view. Maybe go here. This has to be row height. We need to make it. Is that how I have done here? 100 is, it's going to be constant, so I can just keep it 100, I guess. Yeah, that's what I have done. Keep it instead of automatic. It's now taking that 444. Instead of that, I'm just keeping this. Run. And it's not pretty visible between those cell space. It's all white. Maybe I can just make that color to see it's working. It's listing out. So if you see, New York has many, at least 3 or 4 airports now, but it's only listing out this one single airport. Why is it showing New York? Am I okay? I guess Mumbai will. I'm just okay. It's pretty fine. Mumbai, Maharashtra, India. So city and its states. It's showing pretty well. Now also I need to make some background changes so that it does not always. It's not differentiating between the cells. So what is the color I applied? Secondary system. Okay, maybe we can do that same here. Go here. In background is right now white. I can maybe make it as secondary system background color. So this might give me a better view of that table view cell. So its background is pretty fine. Okay, it's now there is no spacing between the set. That's where I wanted to actually add that, but this is working pretty fine. But there is no spacing. You can't see any spacing because I don't have any. That's the reason I was wanting a view on top of it, like on the cell. If I had a view on top of it, let you do that. Let me just do that. Okay, so this has to be absolutely of clear color, I guess. Content view is clear color. If I keep it as clear color, then that magic will work. Content view, city cells, content view, background, clear color, and then maybe I'll add a view on top of it. View. Where's the top so that it's not blocking my labels? Something like this. And then leading, trailing, top, bottom, maybe equal spacing 10 and 10. I guess that's, let's see what happens. Content, what all things needs background color to be clear color. Okay, that fixes it. Yeah, too much spacing. We can even reduce that. 5. I think this tutorial is over. I'm just making that final modifications. Now let's talk about this present situation which most of us are going through, this global epidemic. It's a lockdown over here for 3 weeks, and this has never happened in the history where a whole country is locked down. But this looks like the basic thing which we need to do right now to help save lives, mostly the elderly and the vulnerable. I'm also doing my bit by staying home and almost all the time and just going out for the basic necessity right now. Things will improve soon. Let me know what's happening at your end too. Let this be a great learning for all of us. I'm coming back with more episodes soon. Until then, stay subscribed and positive, and stay positive through these tough times, and be kind and help the needy. That's it from my end.